Hozier, a famous Irish musician, is currently being cancelled for urging for peace in the Middle East. At first, when I saw him take his guitar off and approach the mic with a solemn sigh, I thought, here it is. It's finally happening. A musician is going to do an ad read in the middle of a gig.
If you bear with me for one moment, I'd love to speak to you from the heart.
And from there, I kind of tuned out because I already have NORD VPN and, I'm a level 50 on Clash of Clans. But then he did something nobody expected. Hozier, a left-wing Western musician, decided to stick his nose into a geopolitical conflict which goes back thousands of years.
If you would love to see a ceasefire at this time, contact your representatives.
Hozier lends authority to his call for peace by making the easy comparison between this conflict in the Middle East and the one that happened in Northern Ireland when Catholics and Protestants were killing each other there between the 1960s and the 1990s. Many incorrectly assume that Hozier was an active member of the IRA during that period, solely based on the fact that he has great hair, which was admittedly seemingly a prerequisite for being involved in the conflict. In reality, a quick Google search will reveal that Hozier was 4 years old during the final ceasefire, raised in a town called Bray, which at the time nobody wanted to bomb anyway because a good bombing might have actually improved the shithole. Hozier as such does not have first-hand authority on conflicts. The comparison itself between Northern Ireland and the Middle East does actually fall short. 3,500 people died in 30 years during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. 11,000 have died in the last 30 days in Israel and Palestine. I think a more apt comparison would have actually been another 20th century Irish war, a class conflict between two Irish villages, Carrickdows and Ballydows, often referred to nowadays as the War of the Buttons.
You know what that line stands for? Keep on your own side and leave our postman alone. Rubbish, he's nobody's postman, he belongs to everyone. He's ours till he leaves Ballydows. Yeah.
The most hideous thing about that conflict was that only children took part. Crucially, the War of the Buttons did not end with a two-state solution. Instead, the leaders of both sides were sent to an orphanage for bad boys, where they eventually became the best of friends. I suggest that the same solution be put forward for Benjamin Netanyahu and the leader of Hamas. And while we're at it, Zelensky and feckin' Putin. The third issue with Hozier's call for peace is that it never works out well for musicians to be given their opinions on society, philosophy, war, or anything at all for that matter. Here's John Lennon calling for a society without possessions or religion in the year 1971.
No possessions and no religion.
Naturally, the irony of shooting the video in a massive empty mansion was lost on John, as was the fact that the Soviet Union at that time had long since gotten John's wish, and the results of his magical free-for-all hippie paradise was the deaths of 40 million people. Another catastrophic consequence of John Lennon's lack of awareness was when he inflicted Yoko Ono's artistic talents on the world. And by the way, the bed protest was very much the black Instagram square of its day. Another example, Bono bollocking a fan out of it for holding up a sign that said SF.
2 letters, SF and you too.
SF obviously stood for San Francisco, seeing that the concert in question was situated in San Francisco. But Bono, being unable to see beyond the confines of Bonoland, assumed it stood for Sinn Féin, the then political wing of the IRA, and proceeded to ruin the vibe for absolutely everybody.
You bastards left those people 11 dead, 55 wounded.
My view is that people like Hozier should respect that their audience have paid money to hear them sing and not to hear their shitty take on the current thing. And one member of the audience actually agreed with me.
In that resolution yesterday,
And that is an unbelievably satisfying question for a hater like me. Hozier wants to involve the United States in brokering peace, again because the United States helped to sort out Northern Ireland. My big issue with that is that since the Troubles ended in 1998, America did decide to go ahead and murder 1 million Iraqis. Either A, worst case because they wanted oil, or B, best case, cause oops, we thought you had nuclear weapons, lol saws. Then Hollywood made lucrative blockbusters glamorizing how good Americans were at Iraqi genocide. The emotional element of these films, by the way, not deriving from all the dead kids, but from how bad the soldiers' mental health was affected when they came home. So Americans may not be the best people to come in with the the moral high ground on this issue. The final problem with calling for a ceasefire is literally everybody wants a ceasefire. It's so obvious. The only guy in the world who doesn't want a ceasefire is a guy called Ben Shapiro, who lives under the warmonger's illusion that one can win at hatred. You know, unfortunately it turns out that despite the quantity and the quality of the killing you do, there will always be enough survivors to feel resentful that you've destroyed everything they hold dear over something that has nothing to do with them. The only thing to be done, as dull and as disappointing as this is to stop murdering children as quickly as possible. Which, to be honest, is why Hozier's right about everything. Stop the war! Stop the war! Thanks for watching, guys.
And today the United States voted against in the General Assembly.
They end up booing.
Whatever need Panto fills for kids, this shit fills that same need for politically engaged adults.